The stars looked different from the observation deck of the UES Defiant. Commander Allison Wright stood with her hands clasped behind her back, watching as Earth grew smaller in the distance. The ship moved silently through space, heading toward the outer reaches of the solar system. A patrol mission, they called it. But Wright knew better. They were showing the flag, making sure their new visitors understood humanity had at least some presence beyond their home planet. 6 days ago, everything had changed. The massive ships had appeared without warning near Jupiter, their hulls gleaming with strange blue lights. First contact, the moment humanity had both dreamed of and feared for centuries. "Commander, you're needed on the bridge." The voice of Lieutenant Paul Jackson broke through her thoughts. "On my way," Wright replied, turning away from the view. She walked briskly through the corridors of the Defiant, nodding to crew members as she passed. The ship was humanity's newest vessel, but compared to what they had seen from the aliens, it might as well have been made of wood and canvas. The bridge hummed with quiet activity as Wright entered. Screens showed the positions of the alien vessels, now spread throughout the solar system. Too many to count. "Ma'am, we're receiving a transmission from the alien flagship," said Communications Officer Grace Miller. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies. Everyone on Earth is seeing this too." "Put it on screen," Wright ordered. The main view screen flickered, then revealed the image of a creature that looked almost human except for its blue skin and 4 eyes. It wore what appeared to be a military uniform of some kind, decorated with strange symbols. "People of Earth," the alien began, its voice translated by the ship's computers. "I am High Commander Zaxel of the Galactic Concordat. We have observed your civilization for some time now. Your development has been amusing to watch." Wright felt her jaw tighten as the alien continued. "Your pitiful vessels would not survive a single engagement with even our smallest patrol craft." The alien's 4 eyes blinked in what seemed like amusement. "The Concordat rules over 700 worlds across this sector of the galaxy. You have 2 choices. Join us as a protected species and serve the greater good of the Concordat, or face complete isolation. You have 1 Earth month to decide." The screen went dark. Silence fell over the bridge. Wright looked at her crew. Young faces, now pale with worry. "Orders, Commander?" asked Executive Officer Ben Harris. "Set course for Earth," Wright said. "Full speed." Beneath the surface of the moon, Chief Engineer Daniel Foster worked in a space that officially did not exist. Project Odysseus had been humanity's best-kept secret for nearly 30 years. While the world watched public space programs launch conventional rockets and build ordinary space stations, the true work happened here, hidden from prying eyes, both terrestrial and, it now seemed, extraterrestrial. "Daniel, how close are we?" asked the voice from the large screen on the wall. Foster looked up at the face of Admiral Eric Mason, the man who had overseen Project Odysseus since its beginning. "The quantum displacement drive is functioning at 87% efficiency," Foster replied, running a hand through his short brown hair. "We can install it in the test vessels within 2 weeks." "We might not have 2 weeks," Mason said gravely. "The Concordat has given us 1 month, but their ships are positioning themselves throughout our system. Intelligence suggests they're mapping defensive capabilities." Foster laughed bitterly. "They won't find much. Everything that matters is right here." For decades, Earth's nations had maintained the illusion of separate space programs with modest capabilities. In reality, they had pooled resources to fund the quantum displacement technology that would change everything, the technology that could make ships vanish from normal spacetime and reappear anywhere, instantly. "The President is calling an emergency meeting," Mason said. "All world leaders, top military personnel. You and I need to be there." Foster nodded. "I'll bring the prototype demonstration." The White House Situation Room was packed with the most powerful people on Earth. Presidents, prime ministers, generals, and scientists all gathered around the large table. President Linda Howard of the United States stood at the head of the table, her face grave. "Ladies and gentlemen, we face the greatest threat in human history," she began. "The Concordat has made their intentions clear. They see us as primitives, as potential servants." Commander Wright sat near the middle of the table, still in her uniform from the Defiant. She had been rushed to this meeting immediately upon landing. "Commander Wright," the president said. "You've seen their ships up close. Your assessment?" Wright stood. "Madam President, distinguished leaders, the alien vessels are advanced, numerous, and positioned strategically throughout our system. They outnumber our conventional fleet by at least 50 to 1. Based on their visible weapon systems, they could destroy our surface ships in minutes." Murmurs of concern filled the room. "However," Wright continued, "they've made a critical error. They've judged us by the size and capability of our visible fleet. They don't know about Project Odysseus." Admiral Mason stood. "For those who haven't been fully briefed, Project Odysseus represents the true focus of humanity's space defense program for the past 3 decades. While we publicly built conventional ships like the Defiant, we secretly developed technology that breaks the fundamental rules of warfare." He nodded to Foster, who activated a small device on the table. A holographic display appeared, showing a schematic of a ship unlike anything in Earth's known fleet. "The quantum displacement drive," Foster explained. "It allows our ships to phase between dimensions, becoming effectively invisible and untargetable, while still able to launch attacks. We have built a fleet of 20 vessels equipped with this technology, hidden in bases throughout the solar system." President Howard looked around the table. "The Concordat believes we are weak because that is what we wanted them to see. They believe our fleet is tiny and primitive because those are the only ships we've allowed to be detected." Admiral Mason added, "They've given us 1 month to decide whether to surrender or face isolation. I suggest we use that month to prepare our response." "And what response do you suggest, Admiral?" asked the Chinese president. Mason's expression hardened. "They've threatened our world based on a profound misunderstanding of our capabilities. I say we correct that misunderstanding decisively." President Howard nodded slowly. "We will not become anyone's servants. Earth stands as equals in this galaxy, or we stand alone." As the meeting continued into the night, plans were made. The visible fleet would be positioned defensively, maintaining the illusion of humanity's limited capabilities. Meanwhile, the Ghost Fleet, the ships equipped with quantum displacement drives, would prepare for the real battle. In 1 month, the Concordat would learn that the size of humanity's fleet had never been the measure of its danger. They had mocked what they could see, never imagining what lurked in the dimensional shadows waiting to strike. 3 weeks had passed since the Concordat's ultimatum. Earth seemed to continue its normal routines, but beneath the surface, preparations moved at a frantic pace. Military bases hummed with activity. Scientists worked around the clock. And, in orbit, the small conventional fleet performed regular patrols, maintaining the illusion of Earth's limited capabilities. The Concordat had sent an ambassador to help Earth transition to its new role as a protectorate. Ambassador Drexel arrived with great ceremony in a sleek vessel that landed outside the United Nations building in New York. He stood nearly 7 feet tall, his blue skin reflecting the camera flashes as he emerged from his ship. "I come in. Peace," he announced to the gathered world leaders, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. "To guide your species into the greater galactic community." Dr. Olivia Cruz watched the broadcast from her lab at the Global Defense Initiative headquarters in Geneva. As head xenobiologist, she had been tasked with learning everything possible about the Concordat species. The ambassador's arrival provided her first chance to study one up close. "Record everything," she told her team as Drexel moved through the formal welcome ceremony. "Every movement, every physiological response." Later that day, Cruz sat in a private meeting with Drexel, ostensibly to discuss the medical needs of his species during his stay on Earth. Hidden sensors recorded his vital signs. "Your planet is quite quaint," Drexel said, sipping water through a specialized apparatus. "Your people seem intelligent despite your technological limitations," Cruz smiled politely. "We're a young species by your standards." Indeed, the youngest member of the Concordat had achieved faster than light travel 3,000 years before your people learned to make fire. He laughed, a strange bubbling sound. Cruz directed the conversation toward Concordat physiology, asking, Seemingly innocent questions that revealed more than the ambassador realized. By the end of the meeting, she had confirmed her theory. The concordate species shared a unique neural structure that processed sensory information differently than humans. In her lab that night, Cruz analyzed the data with her team. "Look at these readings," she said, pointing to a display showing the ambassador's neural activity. "His species processes quantum field fluctuations as sensory input. It's as if they can naturally perceive quantum states that humans can't detect without instruments." "Is that an advantage?" asked her assistant Ryan. "It could be their greatest weakness," Cruz replied. "Their neural systems are hypersensitive to certain quantum field disruptions, the kind our displacement drives create as a byproduct." She immediately sent her findings to Admiral Mason. Far beyond Neptune, Lieutenant Sean Miller guided the UES Phantom through the darkness of space. The ship was invisible, not just to radar and other conventional detection methods, but to reality itself. The quantum displacement drive hummed quietly, keeping the vessel slightly out of phase with normal spacetime. Miller's mission was simple: gather intelligence on the concordate fleet. For 2 weeks, the Phantom had moved undetected among the alien vessels, recording their communications, scanning their technology, and mapping their positions. "How many ships are we looking at now, Lieutenant?" asked Captain Frank Rogers over the secure quantum comlink. "I've counted 412 combat vessels. In the solar system, sir," Miller replied, checking his instruments. "They're arranged in a standard containment pattern. They're not expecting any resistance." "What about their tactics and capabilities?" Miller sent the compiled data back to Earth. "Their ships are powerful, but their movement patterns are predictable. They rely on overwhelming force rather than strategy. And their sensors seem completely blind to our quantum signatures. They have no idea we're here." "Good work," Rogers said. "Return to Luna Base. The Admiral wants all Ghost Fleet commanders for a final briefing." The Phantom silently changed course, slipping past a massive concordate battleship without triggering a single alarm. In the White House Situation Room, Commander Wright studied the holographic display showing the positions of every concordate vessel in the solar system. Beside her, Admiral Mason and President Howard discussed the final details of Earth's response. "Their ships outnumber our conventional fleet 50-1, Wright noted grimly. "Even with our quantum technology, we're facing a force that could potentially overwhelm us." Mason nodded. "That's why timing is everything. Dr. Cruz's discovery about their neural sensitivity gives us an additional advantage. Our quantum weapons won't just damage their ships. They'll disorient their crews." President Howard looked at the countdown timer on the wall. 7 days remained until the Concordate's deadline. "We could ask for more time," she suggested. "No," Mason replied firmly. "Every day they spend in our system gives them more data." "Right. Now they're overconfident. They think they've seen everything we have. That's our advantage." The door opened and Daniel Foster walked in. He looked exhausted but triumphant. "The final tests are complete," he announced. "All 20 Ghost Fleet vessels are equipped with fully functioning quantum displacement drives and quantum disruption torpedoes. They can phase in and out of normal space at will, and the torpedoes can be delivered inside enemy shields before detonating." "And the neural disruptor?" Mason asked. "Integrated into the torpedo detonation sequence," Foster confirmed. "When they explode, they'll create a quantum field disruption that should incapacitate concordate crew members within range." President Howard moved to the center of the room. The world's military leaders watched her, waiting for the final decision. "Ladies and gentlemen, in 1 week the Concordate expects us to surrender our sovereignty and become their servants. They believe we have no choice because they've only seen the fleet we wanted them to see." She paused, looking at each face in turn. "Instead, we will show them what humanity is truly capable of. Operation Shadow Strike is approved." Wright felt a mixture of dread and resolve. She would command the UES Defiant, now secretly retrofitted with a quantum displacement drive in the coming battle. "Your orders are simple," Mason told the assembled commanders. "When the Concordate arrives to hear our answer, we let them believe we're going to surrender. Then, on my signal, all Ghost Fleet vessels will simultaneously attack key targets throughout the system." Foster added. Remember, your ships can phase in and out of normal space at will, strike, then disappear before they can target you. Their numerical advantage means nothing if they can't see or hit you. As the meeting ended, Wright found herself standing alone with Mason by the display. "Do you think we can win this?" she asked, quietly. The Admiral's face was solemn. "They've never faced an enemy they couldn't see. They've never fought a war across dimensions. We're not just fighting for Earth, Commander. We're fighting to show the galaxy that humanity will not be underestimated again." Wright nodded, understanding the weight of what was coming. In 1 week, the fate of humanity would be decided not by the size of its fleet, but by its ingenuity, its secrecy, and its willingness to fight from the shadows. The Concordat had mocked Earth's tiny visible fleet. They were about to learn what doom truly meant. The day of the ultimatum arrived with a red sunrise over New York City. The massive Concordat flagship, the Eternal Dominion, moved into low Earth orbit, casting a shadow over the United Nations building. Its size made even the largest human skyscrapers look like toys. Ambassador Drexel stood before the gathered nations of Earth, his blue skin shining under the bright lights of the General Assembly. Behind him, a holographic display showed the positions of hundreds of Concordat vessels throughout the solar system, a show of force designed to remind humanity of its helplessness. "The time has come for your answer," Drexel announced, his four eyes scanning the crowd. "Will Earth join the Concordat as a protected species, or will you choose isolation and eventual extinction?" President Howard walked slowly to the podium. Her face showed no fear as she looked up at the towering alien. Around the world, billions watched the broadcast, unaware of what was about to happen. "Ambassador Drexel, we thank the Concordat for its generous offer," Howard began, her voice steady. "After careful consideration, the nations of Earth have reached a unanimous decision." She paused, looking directly into the camera. This was the signal that Admiral Mason and the Ghost Fleet had been waiting for. "Earth declines your offer. Humanity stands as equals, or not at all." Drexel's expression changed from smugness to "Then extinction it shall be," he declared, raising a device to signal his fleet. In orbit, Concordat vessels began to move into attack formation. Their sensors showed Earth's small conventional fleet scrambling to defensive positions, a futile gesture that their commanders found almost amusing. What they didn't see were the 20 Ghost Fleet ships, already in position but phased slightly out of normal spacetime, invisible, untargetable, and ready to strike. Aboard the UES Defiant, Commander Wright sat in the captain's chair, watching her tactical display. The ship hovered in quantum displacement, invisible to the enemy. "All systems ready, Commander," reported Lieutenant Jackson. "Quantum disruption torpedoes armed and locked on primary targets." Wright opened a secure channel to the other 19 Ghost Fleet vessels. "Remember your training. Phase in, fire, phase out. Don't stay in normal space longer than 5 seconds. Admiral," Mason's voice came through the command channel. "Operation Shadow Strike commences in 3, 2, 1, execute." Wright gave the order. "Phase in, fire torpedoes, all targets." In an instant, the Defiant shifted fully into normal space, appearing, as if from nowhere, directly behind a massive Concordat cruiser. Before the alien vessel could react, the Defiant launched 4 quantum disruption torpedoes. Then, just as quickly, the human ship phased out again, vanishing from sensors. Across the solar system, the same scene repeated 19 times as the Ghost Fleet struck simultaneously. Quantum torpedoes materialized inside the shields of 20 Concordat warships, detonating with devastating effect. The explosions were unlike anything the Concordat had ever experienced, not just physical destruction, but a rippling quantum field disruption that spread through the alien ships, overwhelming the sensitive neural systems of their crews. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, Admiral Klovax of the Concordat military watched in horror as his tactical display showed 20 ships suddenly exploding. "What is happening?" he demanded. "Where did those attacks come from?" His sensor operators frantically scanned space. "No enemy vessels detected, Admiral. The attacks, they came from nowhere." Klovax slammed his fist down. "Impossible. Deploy all fighters. Target their orbital platforms. But even as he gave the order, another wave of invisible attacks struck. This time, 30 concordate vessels were hit simultaneously. The quantum disruptions spread through their systems, causing cascading failures. In her laboratory beneath Geneva, Dr. Cruz monitored the neurological readings from captured concordate crew members. As the quantum disruption spread, the aliens clutched their heads in agony. "It's working better than we predicted," she told Admiral Mason over the secure line. "The quantum field disruptions are causing severe neural overload in their brains. They can't function in the affected areas." Mason nodded grimly. "How long does the effect last?" "About 20 minutes after exposure. More than enough time for our ships to strike and disappear before they can recover." Back in orbit, the battle, if it could be called that, continued. The concordate fleet fired blindly into space, unable to target what they couldn't see. Meanwhile, the Ghost fleet phased in and out of normal space, delivering devastating blows before vanishing again. Wright directed the Defiant through 3 more attack runs, each time targeting command nodes on the largest concordate vessels. Her crew worked with practiced precision, knowing that every second in normal space increased their risk of detection. "Phase in," she ordered for the 4th time. The Defiant materialized directly above the Eternal Dominion. "Fire torpedoes, target their main command tower." 4 quantum torpedoes launched, passing through the flagship's shields as if they weren't there. They struck the command tower simultaneously, creating a rippling quantum field disruption that spread throughout the massive vessel. "Phase out," Wright commanded, and the Defiant disappeared just as concordate point defense systems began to lock on. On the Eternal Dominion's bridge, Admiral Kovacs and his officers collapsed, their neural systems overwhelmed by the quantum disruption. Emergency systems blared as secondary explosions rocked the flagship. "How?" Kovacs gasped, fighting to remain conscious. "They have quantum phase technology? Impossible. Their visible infrastructure couldn't support." Understanding dawned on him too late. The humans had hidden their true capabilities. The primitive fleet had been a deception, a cover for something far more advanced. In the United Nations building, Ambassador Drexhall received frantic communications from the concordate fleet. His 4 eyes widened in shock as reports of the devastating attacks poured in. President Howard watched him calmly. "Is there a problem, Ambassador?" "What have you done?" Drexhall demanded, his usual arrogance replaced by fear. "Those aren't conventional weapons. You're using quantum displacement technology." "We are defending our home," Howard replied simply, "with capabilities we developed over decades while showing the galaxy only what we wanted it to see." Drexhall stared at her, finally understanding the terrible miscalculation the concordate had made. "You deceived us." "No, Ambassador. You deceived yourselves. You saw our visible fleet and assumed it was all we had. You judged our civilization by what was obvious, never considering what might be hidden." Outside, the sky lit up as another wave of quantum disruption torpedoes struck concordate vessels in Earth orbit. The mighty alien fleet, which had arrived, with such confidence now found itself under attack by an enemy it couldn't see or fight. The battle for Earth had begun, and humanity's tiny fleet was proving to be the harbinger of doom for the overconfident concordate. 2 days into what Earth now called the Ghost War, the concordate had lost over a third of its fleet. No human ships had been destroyed. The aliens simply could not fight what they could not see. Admiral Kovacs, Supreme Commander of the Concordate, military forces arrived personally to take control of the situation. His vessel, the Stellar Conquest, was twice the size of the Eternal Dominion and bristled with weapons that could crack a planet's crust. "I want every detail of these attacks," he demanded as he stormed onto the command deck of the flagship. The previous commander stood at attention, visibly shaking. "Sir, the humans have developed quantum phase technology," the officer explained. "Their ships can shift between normal space and some other dimension. They appear, attack, and vanish. Before we can target them." Kovacs's 4 eyes narrowed. "Impossible. Our intelligence showed they were barely capable of reaching their own moon with conventional drives." How could they possibly have developed quantum phase technology? It appears they deliberately showed us only what they wanted us to see, said the science officer. Their primitive ships were decoys. The admiral slammed his fist on a console. Deploy the quantum detection grid. If they want to use phase technology against us, we'll adapt. Engineers hurried to install new sensors designed to detect quantum shifts in space-time. If the humans phased into attack, perhaps they could be detected in that moment of transition. Lieutenant Sean Miller guided his ship, the UES Phantom, through the darkness of space near Jupiter. His mission had changed from reconnaissance to disruption. Following Admiral Mason's new orders, he led a squadron of 5 ghost ships on a daring raid against the Concordate supply lines. All ships, prepare quantum disruptors, he ordered. Remember, we need to plant them on their fuel carriers, then get clear before detonation. The Phantom and its sister ships phased into normal space, just long enough to attach small devices to a dozen Concordate supply vessels. Each device contained a quantum displacement field generator programmed to create a chain reaction with the exotic fuel the aliens used. Miller checked his timer. 30 seconds to detonation. All ships phase out and fall back to minimum safe distance. The human vessels disappeared into quantum displacement. Seconds later, the devices activated, but instead of explosive destruction, they created expanding fields of quantum disruption that engulfed the supply ships and nearby combat vessels. The alien crews fell to their knees, their neural systems overwhelmed. The disruption spread through their fuel lines, creating unstable reactions that disabled propulsion systems across a quarter of the Concordate fleet. Direct hit, Miller reported back to Earth Command. The Concordate supply lines are broken. Half their fleet near Jupiter is dead in space. Admiral Mason's voice came through the comm. Excellent work, Lieutenant. Now move to Phase 2. We need to prevent them from establishing any ground bases on Mars. On the red surface of Mars, Captain Gregory Martinez and his squad of Marines waited in the shadows of a crater. Unlike traditional soldiers, they wore specialized quantum phase armor that allowed them to shift partially in and out of normal space. Through his helmet display, Martinez watched as a Concordate landing ship descended toward the Martian surface. Intelligence reports suggested the aliens planned to establish a forward base here to better coordinate their attacks on Earth. Remember, he told his troops, we phase in, eliminate the command staff, then phase out. No extended engagements. His squad activated their armor's quantum field generators. Their bodies became semi-transparent, caught between dimensions. In this state, they could walk through solid matter while still interacting with objects if they chose to. As the Concordate troops emerged from their landing ship, Martinez and his squad phased through the crater wall and approached unseen. The aliens set up defensive positions, completely unaware of the human soldiers walking invisibly among them. Martinez raised his hand, giving the signal. As one, the humans phased partially back into normal space, just enough to use their weapons. Quantum pulse rifles fired, each shot carrying a disruption field that targeted not just bodies but nervous systems. The alien soldiers collapsed, their advanced combat armor useless against weapons that bypassed physical matter. Their superior, physical strength meant nothing against humans who could literally walk through walls and enemy fire. Within minutes, the Concordate landing force was neutralized. Martinez's squad planted quantum disruptors throughout the alien equipment, then phased out completely before reinforcements arrived. When a second wave of Concordate troops landed hours later, they found only disabled equipment and unconscious comrades. And when they tried to revive their systems, the hidden disruptors activated, spreading quantum field disruptions that rendered their technology useless. Mars would not fall to the Concordate today. In Geneva, Ambassador Drexhall sat in a secure room, now a prisoner of war. Across from him, Dr. Olivia Cruz studied his reactions as she reviewed data from the ongoing conflict. Your fleet has lost 206 vessels, she informed him. No human ships have been destroyed. This is impossible, Drexhall insisted, though his voice lacked its former confidence. How could you hide such technology from our scans? How could your species develop quantum phase technology when you appeared so primitive? Cruz smiled. We didn't hide it from your scans. We built it in places your scans never reached. Deep underground, inside asteroids, beneath the lunar surface. While your people watched our conventional space program and dismissed us as backward, we were developing technologies you never imagined we could understand. Understanding dawned in the ambassador's 4 eyes. You let us see only what you wanted us to see. We learned long ago not to put all our resources on display, Cruz replied. On Earth, the most dangerous predators are often those that don't advertise their strength. She leaned forward. Your neural structure is fascinating, Ambassador. The quantum disruptions that our weapons generate, they affect your species far more severely than they would affect humans. It's almost as if evolution designed you with a specific weakness to the very weapons we developed. Drexhall stared at her. You knew this before the conflict began. You studied me when I arrived. Cruz nodded. We've been studying the Concordate since your ships first entered our system. Knowledge is the most powerful weapon, Ambassador. You came to our world believing you knew everything about us, while we learned everything about you. Outside the secure facility, reports continued to arrive from across the solar system. The mighty Concordate fleet was in disarray, unable to fight an enemy that struck from nowhere and disappeared before they could respond. 3 days into the Ghost War, the outcome was already becoming clear. Humanity's tiny fleet had become the doom of the overconfident Concordate. 1 week after the start of the Ghost War, the remaining Concordate ships retreated to the edge of the solar system. What had begun as a show of overwhelming force had become a desperate struggle for survival. Nearly half their fleet was destroyed, or disabled, while the rest suffered from critical damage to their systems. Admiral Kilvax, his pride in ruins, sent a message to Earth. We request a ceasefire and negotiations. In the Antarctic Neutral Conference facility, humanity's leaders gathered to meet with the Concordate delegation. The facility had been built years ago as part of Project Odysseus, designed specifically for potential first contact scenarios. President Howard sat at one end of a large table made of polished oak. Admiral Mason stood behind her along with Commander Wright and Dr. Cruz. At the other end sat the Supreme Counselor of the Concordate, a wizened alien named Valthrek, with Admiral Kulvax and several other high-ranking officials. Your demonstration of quantum phase technology has been impressive, Valthrek began, his 4 eyes blinking slowly. We underestimated your species. Howard nodded but said nothing. You could destroy our entire fleet, Valthrek continued. Why haven't you? Admiral Mason stepped forward. Because extermination was never our goal. Unlike the Concordate, we don't measure civilization by conquest. Valthrek considered this. Yet you hid your true capabilities from us. You deceived us. We protected ourselves, Howard replied. For centuries, humanity fought among itself. We learned the hard way that showing all your strength often invites attack. When we united and looked to the stars, we decided to present a modest face to the galaxy, while developing our defenses in secret. Klivax leaned forward. But how? Our most advanced scientists believed quantum phase technology was at least a century beyond your development level. Daniel Foster, who had been quietly observing from the side, spoke up. Your scientists based that assessment on what they could see. Our conventional space program was real, but it was also a cover. While the world watched rockets and space stations being built, the real work happened underground and in hidden facilities. Valthrek nodded slowly. A wise strategy. We have much to learn from each other. He turned to President Howard. What are your terms? Howard slid a data pad across the table. Equal standing. The Concordate will recognize Earth as a sovereign power, not a protectorate. We will establish diplomatic relations and cultural exchange programs, and your constitution will be amended to require diplomatic first contact rather than intimidation. The aliens conferred among themselves briefly before Valthrek responded. These terms are acceptable, but we would add one more, a technology exchange program. Your quantum phase technology in exchange for our faster-than-light travel systems. Mason and Foster exchanged glances. Earth had been working on FTL travel for years with limited success. This could advance their program by decades. Agreed, Howard said. with appropriate safeguards on both sides. The peace treaty was signed that day, officially ending the Ghost War. As the Concordat delegation prepared to leave, Admiral Colvax approached Commander Wright. "Your tactics were brilliant," he admitted. "No Concordat commander has ever faced an enemy they couldn't see." Wright nodded. "Sometimes the smallest fleet can be the most dangerous, if you use it correctly. A lesson the Concordat won't soon forget," Colvax replied. 3 months later, Commander Wright found herself captaining a new vessel, the UES Ambassador. Unlike the warships of the Ghost Fleet, this ship was designed for diplomacy and exploration. Foster had joined her as technical liaison, his quantum displacement drive now powering a new generation of ships. "Preparing for quantum jump," Foster announced from his station on the bridge. "Coordinates set for the Concordat homeworld." Wright nodded. "Engage when ready." The ship shimmered and disappeared from Earth orbit, making the journey of over 30 light-years in an instant. When they reappeared, a magnificent blue-green planet filled the view screen, surrounded by orbital cities that sparkled like jewels. "Welcome to Concordia Prime," announced the alien guide assigned to their mission. "The heart of what was once the Concordat, and now the center of our new alliance." As they approached the alien capital world, Wright reflected on how quickly everything had changed. "They thought our fleet was tiny because they could only see what existed in their dimension of understanding," she told Foster. "The universe is bigger than any one perspective." Foster nodded. "And now both our civilizations are stronger for having learned that lesson." Back on Earth, Dr. Cruz and her team worked with Concordat scientists to develop new medical applications for quantum field technology. Their research had already led to breakthroughs in treating several human diseases by temporarily phasing affected cells to a different quantum state. Ambassador Drexel, having requested to remain on Earth as the Concordat's permanent envoy, observed their cooperation with newfound respect. The arrogance he had once shown was gone, replaced by genuine curiosity. "Perhaps it is fortunate that we misjudged you so severely," he admitted to President Howard during a state dinner, celebrating the 3-month anniversary of the peace treaty. "You have taught the Concordat a valuable lesson about appearances and assumptions." "And you've taught us the value of revealing our true capabilities," Howard responded, raising a glass. "To understanding each other as we truly are, the only foundation for lasting peace." Across the solar system, humanity's once hidden fleet emerged from the quantum shadows. The ships were indeed fewer in number than the Concordat Armada had been, but their technological sophistication represented humanity's greatest achievement: the wisdom to develop in secret and the restraint to use power for defense rather than dominance. Admiral Mason, watching from the observation deck of the lunar base, felt a weight lift from his shoulders. For 30 years, he had carried the secret of Project Odysseus, knowing that one day it might be needed to save his species. Now that day had come and gone, and humanity had not just survived. It had found its place among the stars. They mocked our tiny fleet, he murmured to himself, until they realized it meant doom. But from that doom came something better than either of us could have imagined alone. The stars, once seeming to hold only threats, now offered limitless possibilities for a humanity that had proven itself ready to claim its place in the galaxy, not through the size of its fleet, but through the ingenuity of its mind and the strength of its character.